Open heart, open mind. Once again, a very warm welcome to the Sattva channel, an online official platform of the Sattva project. Myself, Samisha Kamle.
I'm thinking we are from Sattva Youth, bringing Dharma to you and preaching Dharma with you. Sattva Youth is a Buddhist youth program initiated by the Sattva Project.
First of all, on the behalf of Sattva project, I would like to thank our StreamYard sponsor and media partner, Durian Asian and Durian FM. And then I would also like to thank an important person behind the scene, Brother Chong, our broadcast director. Thank you, Brother Chong, for all your efforts. Brother Chong, would you please like to come on the screen and say hello to everyone?
Hi, everyone. Hopefully, you find our session today very, very helpful. And please do like and share our broadcast so that more people can benefit. And for those watching later in YouTube, please do subscribe and like as well. And now back to you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Brother
you, Brother
Chong.
Chong. Thank you, Shamisha, as well. Welcome everyone again to our series of meditations for world peace and global healings. We are going to have a very meaningful meditation session tonight, guided by Khenpo, Sonam, Tsewang. Today's topic entitled Guided Healing Meditations, a Practice on Buddha Śākyamuni. Sitting quietly at home, spreading love and kindness all around the globe. Today's live meditation sessions will be divided into two parts. Begin with a short talk and meditations by Khenpola for around 40 minutes, followed by question and answers for another 20 minutes, and then conclude with a dedication prayer. Back to you, Shamisha.
Yeah. Then, Brother Chong, can we please have a small introduction of Khenpola?
Yep.
Yeah. So let me give you a brief introduction of Khenpo Sonam Tsewang. So Khenpola graduated at the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies in Varanasi and also studied at Namdorling Monastery at the Nangyo Nyingma Institute, where he was enthroned as a Khenpo in 2011. He has translated the all-pervading melodious sound of thunder, the outer liberation story of Tibetan Mingyu Dorje, together with Judith Amis, and is currently working on a new translation of Longchenpa's Treasury of Pit Instructions. He travels extensively with Khenchen Pema Sherab Rinpoche, serving as his translator. Khenpola, may I please request you now to lead us in the meditation section and enlighten us with your words? Yes, Khenpola. We can start our meditation session now.
First of all, I would like to thank Sattva Project for having me and asking me to conduct this meditation session, practice session on Buddha Śākyamuni. And thanks for all the team for bringing me here. And today, in this 1 hour session, I would like to explain step by step, like the prayer, the practice on Śākyamuni Buddha. The text itself is composed by the great master, one of the Tibetan great masters, scholar and master, Mipham Rinpoche, who lived in the 19th century, the late 19th century. And one of the special quality about this particular text is that it's quite simple, easy to follow, and also to meditate, and that this kind of text is quite kind of rare to find, especially there are so many other texts on so many other Buddhist deities from the Vajrayana section. However, we hardly find any sadhana or any practice manual on Śākyamuni Buddha, who is actually the founder of the Buddhism, who is kind of whose wisdom and compassion is so significant in bringing this the great teaching of on Buddhism. So therefore, the text itself is quite special, and what I would like to do is, before I go directly to explain on the text, first I would like to remind all of our listeners and watchers to give ourselves a moment to reflect on why do we listen to this teaching, why do we hear this about this teaching, and in order to make sure that this 1 hour becomes kind of virtuous enough, productive enough from the Buddhist perspective, it's very important at the onset the importance of meditation, importance of motivation, the intention. Whenever we do anything, any kind of spiritual practice, what happens is the first thing that comes to our mind is we always think of our well-being, directly our well-being, physical, emotional, and success in life, and so on, so forth. However, we kind of, from the Buddhist perspective, this is considered to be, it's not something bad. It's not something, how to say, something incorrect, but it is not enough, because our motivation actually makes or breaks our practice. So therefore, the motivation, when we come out of our usual kind of like way of thinking, the special usual way of thinking about ourselves, always when the focus is so much on the self, ourself, then what happens is like whatever the actions we may engage in, that action becomes very much limited, even if it is virtuous, even if it is kind of positive. So therefore, in order to make the a short duration of practice, or whether it's studying, whether it's practicing, whether it's meditating, whatever virtuous activity we do, like in order to make sure that this becomes the real cause for our awakening from delusion, awakening. So for that, what is important is the vast intention of bodhicitta. The vast intention of bodhicitta, which means to say that generating the vast intention of the aspiration for achieving the state of awakening for the benefit of all beings. So when our focus, our mind is focused outside of our usual self, and focus outside, and when it is kind of directed to reaching out to all sentient beings, all those who are around us, then what happens is this generate what we call a very great merit, and which becomes actually the cause of the awakening, cause of the supreme enlightenment. So therefore, it's very important to, even if it is for a very short moment, to cultivate this habit, to cultivate this positive attitude of reaching out to all beings. Not only the focus, or the not only the purpose which is directed to oneself, one and only oneself, but the focus or the purpose being directed to all those around us. So that's very important. So for a moment, think of the welfare, the well-being, and the benefit of all sentient beings. And just like I wish happiness, just like I do not want suffering, in the same way, all sentient beings are also in the same boat. They also have this wish. So therefore, think of all sentient beings, the benefit of all sentient beings, and to wish and aspire that we are able to, individually, we are able to bring happiness in the lives of others, lives of all sentient beings, and also overcome suffering, their suffering. So therefore, that's what we call the vast intention. The moment we think of others, the moment we direct our mind to the benefit of others, then what happens is our focus widens, our horizon, mental horizon widens, and whatever merit that we accumulate becomes limitless, and it becomes what we call the cause of the supreme awakening, which is Buddhahood. So first of all, we generate this precious mind called bodhicitta, and then now we will go and try to understand the Mipham Rinpoche's text, and I would like to request Brother Chong to please share on the screen the text so that we can go step by step in understanding what Mipham Rinpoche wrote. So the name of the text is The Treasury of Blessings, a practice of Buddha Śākyamuni, and it's being composed by Mipham Rinpoche, who lived in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And the title is called Treasury of Blessings because when you practice this particular sādhana or the meditation manual, what happens is it brings about a huge amount of blessings, which is actually the source of all the blessings, which means to say that when we meditate on Buddha Śākyamuni, we are not just meditating on Buddha Śākyamuni's form, the external physical features, but we are also meditating and also contemplating on the qualities, the inner qualities of Buddha Śākyamuni. So what makes Buddha Śākyamuni so special? And in that respect, when we go step by step in the text, we'll find out like who is Buddha Śākyamuni, what are his qualities, what are his extraordinary qualities, and when we remind ourselves of these qualities, then what happens is like gives rise to devotion, it gives rise to faith, it gives rise to inspiration to emulate Buddha Śākyamuni and try to bring those qualities within oneself. So that's why, you know, through this practice we kind of like achieve a lot of blessing. Now when we talk about blessing it's actually happens through the meditation. What happens is like transformation happens, our mind changes for the better. So when the transformation happens, that is actually the true blessing. Okay, so we before the main kind of text, Mipham Rinpoche starts with the homage, that is Namo Guru Śākyamunaya, which is actually in Sanskrit, which means to say that I pay homage to the Guru or the teacher Śākyamuni. Then before the real actual prayer, then there is instruction in small letters, and which reads, as you can see, in the Samadhi Raj Sutra, it is said, those who, while walking, sitting, standing, or sleeping, recollect the moon like Buddha, will always be in Buddha's presence and will attain the vast nirvana. And his pure body is the color of gold, beautiful is the protector of the world. Whoever visualizes him like this practices the meditation of the bodhisattvas. In keeping with this, we should practice remembering our incomparable teacher, the Lord of Sages, which refers to Śākyamuni Buddha in the following way. Now, Samadhi Raj Sutra is one of the many Mahayana sutras. So Mahayana forms one of the main teachings given by Śākyamuni Buddha, whose kind of like the main purpose of the Mahayana teaching is to achieve the supreme enlightenment and for the benefit of all sentient beings, which means to say, whoever wishes to achieve the state of Buddhahood, that aspiration, whoever has that, enters the Mahayana path. So in one of the Mahayana sutras, it is said, if we remember Buddha while walking, sitting, standing, sleeping, in all our, even in our daily kind of so-called daily common, usual, normal activities, if we do not forget Buddha Śākyamuni, but always if we are mindful, then the benefit will be always in Buddha's presence, and we will be able to achieve the vast nirvana. So vast nirvana again here refers to the supreme enlightenment. So, which means to say, if we are mindful of Buddha and his qualities in all our actions, in all our activities, even if it is a normal kind of like usual activities, so-called ordinary activities, day-to-day, daily life activities, if we always remember him and his qualities, which means to say the benefit is enormous. That because when we remember Śākyamuni Buddha and his qualities always, then what happens is like automatically we will follow the path. And when we follow the path, then we achieve the result, which is the supreme enlightenment. So therefore, it is quite special. Now, the later it talks about when we meditate on Buddha Śākyamuni's form or body, whose body, the complexion is like gold, which means to say that it is radiant. Then when we visualize on his body, then this becomes what we call the meditation of the bodhisattvas. Now, bodhisattvas are the beings or the individuals who promises to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings who enter the path. So that this becomes the bodhisattvas practice when we focus and when we meditate on Buddha Śākyamuni. Now, in Buddhism, there are actually different forms of meditation, and largely like the one form of meditation is called the single-pointed meditation, and another form is analytical meditation. The single-pointed form of meditation is to focus on any kind of object, singular object, and so that when our mind is focused on one particular object, which means to say when our mind is not distracted, then it calms down all the emotions. It subsides all other negative emotions. And therefore, like there's a chance, like through that, we are able to see the reality of things clearly. So therefore, that is single-pointed meditation. So out of the many methods of single-pointed meditation, the supreme one is considered to be meditating upon an image of the Buddha or the form of the Buddha. So like I think you might have heard of meditating on breath. For example, we focus on breath. And any kind of object can be, material object can be a focus of meditation. So out of the many types of meditation, single-pointed meditation, the meditation on the Buddha's body, Buddha's form, is considered to be the supreme. So therefore, before actual meditation, what precedes is like first we take refuge, and then that will be followed by generating bodhicitta, and then followed by generating or practicing the four immeasurables. So in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. Through the merit of, can you scroll a little bit up? Through the merit of practicing generosity and so on, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now, The first two lines, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment, is what we call taking refuge. Taking refuge means, as a Buddhist, the first step towards entering the Buddha's path, the path of the Buddha, is to take refuge. And which means to say that I take refuge in the Buddha and I consider Buddha as my teacher. I take refuge in the Dharma and which means to say that I accept the way of the Dharma, which is the path that has been shown by Buddha. And then I take refuge in the Supreme Assembly, which means to say that I take refuge, which means to say that I take support. I reach out for support when I practice on the path, on the way, the support of the community, the spiritual community, the Sangha community. So the Buddha as the teacher, the Dharma as the path or the teachings, and the Sangha as the support. Like with these three are considered to be what we call the three jewels, the objects of refuge. And without these three, it's impossible to kind of like come out from the ocean of suffering in samsara. Without relying upon the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, there is no way to achieve what we call the liberation and peace, ultimate peace. So therefore, particularly taking refuge from the Mahayana perspective, from the Bodhisattva perspective, then it says, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. Not just liberation, but enlightenment. Now, you would kind of ask, what is the difference? Liberation is ending samsara, which means to say, when I achieve liberation, I end the cycle of birth and death. I won't be kind of subject to negative emotions, and I won't be born in samsara. I don't need to go through this vicious cycle of birth and death. The chain of the birth and death has already been broken, and that is what we call peace or nirvana. Now, enlightenment is a higher state, which means to say that not only you have achieved liberation, but also when we talk about supreme enlightenment, you reach the full potential. So liberation is more or less not your full potential. Your full potential is supreme enlightenment, and that can be developed through practicing the path of the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, and that starts with, generating bodhicitta. So the next two lines are the bodhicitta, the practice of bodhicitta. Through the merit of practicing generosity and so on, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the first line talks about the practice of paramitas, which means to say the perfections, like practice of generosity, discipline, patience, perseverance, meditative concentration, and wisdom. When you practice this, whatever merit that has been accumulated, I dedicate to achieving the supreme enlightenment for the benefit of beings. Now, these two are so important. We say Dola Penja Sangye Duvarsho, which means to say, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So a Mahayana practitioner, a greater vehicle practitioner, focus at the onset of the path is twofold. The focus is the benefit of sentient beings and supreme enlightenment. So enlightenment as a means to benefit sentient beings. So the ultimate goal for a Mahayana practitioner would be benefiting beings, which can be accomplished through the achievement of supreme enlightenment. Because without supreme enlightenment, you can't benefit beings in a very constructive and in a perfect way. So therefore, these two purposes are so important. So this needs to be this prayer, 4 lines prayer of taking refuge in bodhicitta, needs to be practiced recited 3 times. Then after this, cultivate the 4 immeasurables by saying Samchen Tamche Dewadang, which has 4 lines. May all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred happiness devoid of suffering. And may they dwell in boundless equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Now, these 4 lines are what you call the practice of 4 immeasurables. And when we practice these give rise to what we call the bodhicitta, the altruistic mind that aspires to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. And the first line, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and causes of happiness, talks about what we call the loving kindness, the development of loving kindness, which means to say the loving kindness means wishing all sentient beings happiness, and not only the happiness, but also the causes of happiness. The second one is immeasurable compassion. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And that wish or that prayer is called developing the compassion, which aspires to free all sentient beings from suffering. And not only that, the causes of suffering also. Then the third one is, may they never be separated from sacred happiness devoid of suffering. And this line, the third line, speaks about the immeasurable joy when sentient beings experience happiness, and then we rejoice in that, we take joy in that, and that kind of joy is the attitude is that they never be separated from happiness, which is free from suffering. And that is the third one. And the fourth one is, may they dwell in boundless equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. Now, most of our our attitude is there's always kind of like a bias attitude, friends and relatives and those who are near us, we actually are attached to them. And those who are far away and those who actually harm us, the enemies. And then we have what we call aversion. So there's this, we are divided, our mind is divided into 2, attached to one's near and dear ones, and then aversion to those who are who harm us. So because there is this attitude of bias or impartiality, then what is important is, for a Mahayana practitioner, it's very important to develop equanimity. Without equanimity, then there's always some kind of partiality. And because when we have partiality, then the development of bodhicitta is not possible. So therefore, it's very important to develop immeasurable equanimity, considering all sentient beings, whether they are friends, foes, or neutral, to be same, to be having the same wish for happiness, and also wishing to end all suffering. So because on that level, because of that nature, then we treat and we look at all sentient beings in an equal way. And that is what we call impartiality. So when we practice the 4 immeasurable, that give rise to bodhicitta. Okay, now the next line, again a short instruction by Mipham Rinpoche. After you take refuge and then you, after taking refuge and then developing bodhicitta and then also the 4 immeasurable, bringing to mind how all phenomena appear and yet lack inherent existence, recite the following. Now this is very important here. It brings about the Mahayana view, which talks about things that we see appear, even though they appear to be existent, to be substantial, to be concrete. However, they lack inherent existence. Because when we do not analyze or examine, then it looks like they are solid, very much solid and concrete there, outside there. But when we analyze and mentally dissect and try to see what is the essence, we fail to find anything essential there. So that's why it's called all phenomena appear yet lack inherent existence. Because of this solidity, the grasping upon the solidity of things that appear outside of us, then it binds us in samsara, and there's a lot of attachment involved there. And as a result of that, we fail to achieve what we call peace. So bringing this essential view of Mahayana, that things appear yet they lack inherent existence, with that kind of view, then one actually kind of like meditates upon Śākyamuni Buddha. So from here starts what we call visualization, how one should visualize Śākyamuni Buddha. Okay, so as the union of unborn emptiness and ceaseless appearances of interdependence, magically there appears before me in the sky amidst vast clouds of offerings, on a jeweled lion throne and lotus, sun and moon disk seats, the incomparable teacher, line of the Shakyas. So in short, like one can definitely read and understand it. In short, what is this prayer trying to say is that everything arises from the womb of emptiness, which means to say that even though things arise and things abide, things cease to be, yet when we try to investigate and when we try to see and find out the true nature of things, then they lack inherent existence, and therefore everything is empty. So I think you might have read the Heart Sutra, in which the Buddha in detail explains how all the aggregates, the form, all the phenomena, including our body, our mind, our speech, our emotions, the things that we see around us, everything is kind of empty in nature. So out of emptiness, then the question arises: if everything is empty, does it mean that nothing exists? So this actually question comes up again and again. And when we talk about lacking inherent existence, it talks about lack of independence. There is no such thing in all phenomena which is actually independent. Everything is interdependent. So when you understand this, that nothing is independent and everything is interdependent, then you get a sense of what is emptiness and what is interdependence. So out of causes and condition, things arise. So in the same way, like we visualize that out of emptiness arises Buddha Śākyamuni and sitting on a throne, and with all these attributes mentioned here, which is not difficult to kind of understand. So then later, Mipham Rinpoche speaks about his physical qualities. His body, the color of gold, adorned with major and minor marks. So there are 32 major and 80 minor marks, which you can find it for yourself. It's on the internet. You can find the enumeration which talks about the wonderful physical qualities of the Buddha. Okay, then followed by, because Śākyamuni Buddha is a monk, he wears the 3 Dharma robes. There are 3 Dharma robes, which is, one is called Choge and Namjar. These are the 2 kind of like upper garments, which has, the Choge has less number of stripes, whereas Namjar has more number of stripes. So both of these are, worn at the top of the body, the upper part of the body. And then Tangu is the lower garment, which is called shamtap also. So these three are the monks' robes, three monks' robes. He sits in Vajra posture, which is cross-legged, which as you can see in the picture. His right hand gracefully poised in the earth-touching mudra, the Bhumi Sparsha. So Bhumi Sparsha is a kind of like a gesture like that touches the earth. And his left hand is in gesture of meditation, holding an alms bowl full of nectar. So that's as a typical monk would carry in those days, an alms bowl that is filled with nectar. Okay, please scroll down. Like a mountain of gold, magnificent, he shines in splendor, spreading beams of wisdom light across the whole expanse of space. The 8 close suns, that these are bodhisattvas, 8 bodhisattvas are there, 16 elders. So Buddha Shakyamuni is surrounded by these individuals who are bodhisattvas, and 16 elders are those Shravakas, which means to say practitioners of the foundational vehicle, who promised before Shakyamuni Buddha that they will protect the teachings. So the 16 elders and also the Shravakas are there and the like. A vast ocean-like retinue of noble beings encircles him all around. Simply think of him and he grants the glory of highest bliss. Liberation from samsara and nirvana, the two extremes. He is the great being, perfect embodiment of every source of refuge. Now here, the important thing is what Mipham Rinpoche points out is like, when you think of Shakyamuni Buddha, you think of supreme enlightenment. When you think of Shakyamuni Buddha, you think of wisdom, compassion, and enlightened power. When you think of Shakyamuni Buddha, you kind of think of the possibility of what we call liberation from samsara and nirvana. Samsara is existence. When you achieve supreme enlightenment, you don't fall into samsara. At the same time, you also don't fall into nirvana, the extreme of peace. That means just experiencing peace, and there is no kind of activity as such to benefit sentient beings. So therefore, these two are, the extremes that needs to be avoided for a Mahayana practitioner. So they're two extremes. Okay, so then that is followed by, now this is the visualization part, and then followed by again some instructions by Mipham Rinpoche. Can you a little bit scroll down? Thank you. Visualize the form of the Buddha in this way and imagine that he is actually there in front of you. Now, when we do the visualization, we need to keep in our mind that the Buddha is right now here in front of us. The instant that you generate this thought, as the Buddha's wisdom body is not constrained by limits like time or location, he will certainly be there. One of the sutras says, should anyone think of the Buddha, he is there right in front of them, constantly granting his blessings and freedom from all harm. The merit gained through visualizing the Buddha is inexhaustible. It is a source of virtue that will never go to waste. As it says in the Avatamsaka Sutra, by seeing, hearing, or offering to the Buddhas, a boundless store of merit is amassed till we are rid of all the destructive emotions and sufferings of samsara. This compounded merit will never go to waste. Also, whatever prayers of aspiration we make before the Buddha will be fulfilled. As it says in the teaching of the qualities of Manjushri's Pure Land, everything is circumstantial and depends entirely on our aspiration. Whatever prayers of aspiration we make, the results we will gain accordingly. Now, I won't read further because now we have, time is up for explanation. So, in order to sum up this, whatever I have explained, today we finished what we call, from the beginning, we finished taking refuge, then bodhicitta, then followed by the generating 4 immeasurables. Then, with the right view of emptiness and interdependence, then we visualize on the Shakyamuni Buddha. Now, in this Shakyamuni Buddha, all the features as explained here needs to be clearly kind of like visualized in the sense like imagination. We have to imagine in that way. Now the notes that just now Mipham Rinpoche wrote beneath the visualization, the essence of this is that because Buddhas have limitless wisdom, compassion, and enlightened power, they are what we call timeless. And they are not dependent on time and space. So as a result of that, when we make aspiration, when we kind of develop devotion and faith and remembering those qualities, and when we invoke them, then this what we call, because the power of the faith works, when the power of the faith and the power of compassion and wisdom and enlightened action of the Buddhas, when these two come together, then wonderful things happen, and therefore like we what you call receive what we call blessings, and transformation happens within. So so I think I will stop here, and then maybe if there are any questions, otherwise I can continue explaining whatever is appropriate.
Khenpo, here there's still no any questions from our floor.
Okay,
Maybe
so
you can continue for a while first.
Yeah, maybe I will continue, and just you ping me when there's any question. Okay.
Okay, sure.
You
So
alert me.
audience can write your questions
Yeah,
here as well. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so maybe we are continue with the prayer. So after this, after developing visualization, developing faith, thinking of the immeasurable qualities of the Buddha, of immeasurable wisdom and immeasurable wisdom, compassion, and enlightened power. Then after this, we do this prayer, which is actually kind of like, again, remembering the qualities of the Śākyamuni Buddha, and also making what we call doing the 7 branch practice, so which will be followed. So the first line is, with your great compassion, you embrace this turbulent and degenerate world, and made 500 mighty aspirations. You are as exalted as the white lotus, who hears your name shall never return to samsara. Most compassionate teacher, to you I pay homage. Now, what is the specific quality of Śākyamuni Buddha is, there was this kind of discussion among the Buddhas, and who is going to actually go and help this particular age, what we call the degenerate age, or the turbulent and degenerate age. And Buddha Śākyamuni actually, he kind of accepted that he will embrace this particular degenerate world, and then he also made what we call 500 mighty aspiration in order to benefit the beings. So therefore we are remembering, like when we read this, we remember those qualities. You are as exalted as the white lotus, whoever hears your name shall never return to samsara. Most compassionate teacher, to you I pay homage. Okay, can you scroll down a little bit? Now this is followed by the first one is out of the 7 branch practice. Now what is the 7 branch practice? 7 branch practice means a particular practice which enable you to accumulate a lot of merit. So out of many virtuous activities, we do these 7 specific activities which has the power to generate a lot of merit. And the first one is chaksalwa, and which is kind of to make prostration or to pay homage, which we already have done. So the first the first stanza is paying homage or making prostration. The second one is making offering. All my own and others' virtues of body, speech, and mind, together with all our possessions. Okay, now we are going to make offering. Visualize like Samandabhadra's offerings clouds I offer to you. So this is like the practice of offering. Now, why this Samandabhadra is coming here? What is his role here? As Bodhisattva, Samandabhadra is considered to be expert in a way to kind of like make offerings, especially make actual offerings as well as imagination, offerings through imagination. So in Buddhism, there are a lot of means and methods to accumulate merit, and that accumulation of merit is not entirely dependent on material things. Even from your mind you can make a lot of accumulate a lot of merit, and that is what we call the Samandabhadra's offering, which is like he offers like all the riches, all the prosperities of human and the God realm, and then offer it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Now the third one is all the harmful actions and transgressions I have committed throughout beginningless time, each and every one I now confess with intense and heartfelt regret. Now this one is what we call confession. Confession is like to remember all the negative actions that one has committed, those that you remember and those you have done and you don't remember, and whatever you have done unconsciously. So therefore it's important to bring in mind of those negative actions and then regret and remorse over it, and then confesses. Like that is to purify your negativity. So the practice of confession, the function of practice of confession is to purify negativities. Now, not only of yourself, but also of others. Okay, now this is the third one. The fourth one is rejoice. That means to be happy when we hear others accumulate merit, and rejoice in that, appreciate that. In all virtuous actions of the noble ones and ordinary beings, accumulated throughout the past, present, and future, I rejoice. So there's a rejoice. Then followed by request to turn the wheel of Dharma. Turn the wheel of the profound and vast Dharma teaching ceaselessly and in every direction, I pray. So this is what we call, whenever we see a teacher, we always should request to turn the wheel of Dharma, and that generates a lot of merit. So as you know, historically, when Buddha decided not to teach after he achieved enlightenment, then the gods actually requested him to teach, and then that actually is very symbolic and also has a lot of meaning, that whenever you request someone to turn the wheel of Dharma, the teacher, then that actually generates a lot of merit, because that teaching, turning the wheel of Dharma, benefits so many beings. Okay, next, your wisdom body is like space and remains changeless throughout past, present, and future. Yet in the perception of those to be guided, you go through the display of birth and death. Then, even so, let your form body always to appear, continue always to appear. Now this one is again requesting to remain in samsara, which means to say, please remain within us so that you can benefit all sentient beings. So that's what we call, whenever a master intends to pass away, then we request, please remain amongst us so that one can, the master can benefit so many beings. So that's what we call the sixth one, the sixth branch of prayer practice. And the last one is dedication. Okay, let me read the last two lines and then you can ask question. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. through all the virtues I have accumulated in the past, am accumulating now, and will accumulate it in the future, for the sake of benefiting all beings, or who are as infinite as space, may you, the sovereign of Dharma, be forever pleased. And may all attain the state of victorious one, the Lord of Dharma. So therefore, this is what we call the branch of dedication, the seventh one, which means to say whatever merit that one has accumulated in through practice, and instead of owning it, in the sense that instead of keeping it for yourself, you kind of like spread it to all the benefit of all sentient beings. So that's the dedication.
Okay, thank you, Khenpo, for all the explanations. Here are a few questions from the floor. Let's we start the first one from the learner Paul. He's asking, can Khenpo explain more about the two extremes, liberations of the samsara and nirvana, as mentioned above?
When we are in samsara, that means when we have not uprooted samsara, which means to say when we have self-grasping, and then as a result of that, we have negative emotions, negative actions. As a result of that, we fall into the one of the 6 realms of samsara. So as like we continuously, samsara means like continuous birth and death, you know. So when we fall in samsara, we fall into one extreme, which means to say that we are the victim of samsara, which means to say we suffer in samsara, which means to say we have not achieved liberation. And so that's one extreme, right? So like sentient beings fall into samsara involuntary. They don't have any choice because of karma, you know. We fall into samsara. So that's one extreme. The second extreme is nirvana. That is to say, even though one has managed to end samsara through the practice, through uprooting the cause of samsara, and end the cycle of birth and death, and achieved what we call nirvana or peace, even though we have achieved that. But nirvana is just peace without any kind of like, how to say, activity or benefiting others. Of course, you are in peace, but what about others? What about sentient beings? So sentient beings are still in samsara. So you need to go beyond that, which means to say, when you practice the Mahayana path and achieve the supreme enlightenment, which means to say liberation is not the end of your full potential. You have still not reached the full potential. And therefore, in the sutras, it is mentioned that Buddhas actually remind those who achieve liberation that you have achieved liberation. Yes, it is true. You have ended the cycle of birth and death. But this is a temporary kind of, how to say, it's like an island. You know, somebody who goes and travel in the long time in the sea, and then in order to collect jewels, you know, in the past, in the ancient times, that they do so, and then, you know, they get so tired on the journey, and then before they get to the destination, they're so tired and they think of going back. So, and all of a sudden they see an island and they take rest there, and for after a few days, after rejuvenating, then they think of proceeding further, right? So in the same way, nirvana is an island, kind of island, a resting place, but not your ultimate destination. The ultimate destination is supreme enlightenment, which means to say that you still have your inner obscurations that needs to be kind of further cleaned or purified, and as a result of that, you are still kind of remain in the extreme of nirvana. You have not you have not achieved your full potential. So that's why it's called extreme.
Thank you very much, Khenpo. So, do we have Brother Chuang? Yes, we have one more question from KNG. So he's saying, "Hi Khenpo, just wondering why do you suggest the visualization of the Shakyamuni Buddha when it's merely perception, especially when the atheistic aspects are vast and diverse? That is, some are in marble, some in stone, some in timber. Why not on the reality of the six body sensations?" So Khenpo.
I think of course there are, like when we talk about sense objects, form, there is a form, then we have a form, then we have sound, then smell, then we have taste, then then contact. So sense objects are there. Out of these, the form is the most kind of like, what do you call, the most powerful, you can say, because we get attracted to form. Of course there are other sense objects also, but form is something that really attracts us. We want to see something nice, see something beautiful, right? So when we talk about visualization of Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, then we, in our imagination, when we visualize Buddha Shakyamuni's features, physical features, he has these qualities and so on. But when we visualize these Buddha Shakyamuni as a person, individual, an enlightened being, we have to visualize that way, not a static, immovable, image or a statue made up of gold or marble or whatever. That would be lifeless. When we visualize Shakyamuni Buddha as if he is alive in front of us. So that's important. And as clearly, as detailed as possible through our imagination. And for that, normally what happens is like, what is prescribed is to first gaze at a nice picture like this, nice picture. When you gaze, and then you leave an imprint, mental image. You develop a mental image. And then you, after that, after some time, without even the external image, you can visualize. Now that comes through practice. You have to practice again and again. And therefore, it's important to have see all the qualities of the Buddha, and not only the physical qualities, but also the mental qualities. His wisdom, his compassion, his enlightened power, fearlessness, all these should be visualized.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, Khenpo.
so
Shamisha, I think you have your own questions to ask Khenpo, right?
okay, I have actually two questions now. Just now I got one question. So Khenpo, now while explaining, you said that faith plays a very important role, and I also think that this is a follow-up question to our previous question. So when we say that when we meditate or recite anything, we must have faith, and then visualizing Buddha. So initially for someone who hasn't studied much about Buddha, so to have faith is important, but how to build that faith? So this is my question.
I think in Buddhism there are different levels of faith, and it's very important to know the different levels of faith. Otherwise, it will become like a blind faith. So the first one is what we call inspired faith. Inspired faith means like, all of us have this. When we see somebody, when we hear of somebody, uh, when we read of somebody with some qualities, then we get attracted, and we get inspired. So like, for example, you read Shakyamuni Buddha's story, or you hear Shakyamuni Buddha's qualities, then you get inspired. Wow, this is amazing, this is extraordinary. And that is like on a very a surface level inspiration as inspiration. That is inspired faith. Like you get attracted to it, you mentally get attracted to it, So that's inspired faith. Now, aspired faith is like much one step further, which talks about, oh, like what a wonderful quality. I would also like to have that quality, like wisdom, compassion, love, fearlessness, confidence. I would also like to have those qualities. And that is what we call aspired faith, that you want to be that. You want to be the role model, right? So that's what we call aspired faith. Now, the third one is very important. It's called confident faith. Confident faith is like, it's not just superficial, it's not just momentary inspiration or aspiration, but you really understand the qualities of that person, whether it's wisdom, whether it's compassion, whether it's enlightened power, whatever it is, you really understand it, and you using your reasoning, sense of reasoning, using your rational, that this is so indispensable to me. This is something that I really needed because of this reason, that reason, right? So that's what we call confident faith. And then that goes to the deepest level, which is called irreversible faith. So irreversible faith is like that can't be faith that can't be shaken, so strong that no matter what people say, no matter what you hear, you still have very strong confidence in something, and especially when it comes to Buddha's quality. Now, and that is what we call irreversible faith. So initially, it's very important to hear of or see of these qualities, right? So somebody who is not introduced to Shakyamuni Buddha directly, out of the blue, that faith doesn't come, unless there's a very strong past karma, So therefore, you hear of Shakyamuni Buddha's story from a teacher, from a friend, from a book, wherever the source is, then you get to know him. When you get to know him, then that leads to inspiration, aspiration, confidence, and then irreversible.
So I think we have got some more questions from audience thing.
Yeah, I think just now the second questions by Kiet Eng, he want to like deepen and clarify more. He mentioned that the world visualization itself is already pointing to perceptions and maybe too dynamic for one pointers. So maybe Khenpo would like to explain more about this.
Oh, so the thing is,
Yeah. He continued that the world visualizations is already pointing to perceptions, and they not really maybe cannot understand why there's a need for visualize.
yeah, I think that's quite simple. I think just give me, I will give you an example. For example, there are so many people who consider role model. Young people, they have their role models. They have their favorite movie stars. They have their favorite song, whatever it may be, right? So then when they think of their role model again and again, one time, two time, three time, this quality, that quality, visualize. That's kind of imagination, perceiving. Then when that is done like again and again, then it sticks to your mind. It's like you don't really need to make much effort to focus on that because you are attracted to it, right? So in the same way, visualization is a method or technique for that. When we hear the Buddha's quality, okay, Buddha Shakyamuni, when you see the picture, it's Buddha Shakyamuni is my role model. And in order to focus on that, then this imagination, the details are important. Now, of course, like when we start, all of a sudden, like this clarity from top to bottom won't be there. So therefore, there are steps in visualization, meditation also, that, okay, you start first with a crown. Start with a crown and try to stabilize your mind and focus on that. Then slowly go up to forehead, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears. Slowly, slowly, when you have this detail, then you can little bit more like the head as a whole, then the upper body as a whole, and the whole body as a whole, right? So it's like, a step-by-step process, So first, like, in terms of practice, it can be done like that, because then all of a sudden you don't get the details. You may have a overall imprint of the image, but you don't have those details, right? Then all of a sudden, like when you go into the details, it just dissolves and you don't see anything, right? So therefore,
Yes.
in certain meditation techniques, single like focus is being kind of step by step is being kind of prescribed.
Okay. I think, yep. Hope
Hmm.
Kiet Eng can understand the explanations from Kebola. We have two more questions. I think due to running out of time, so we will finish out these two questions as our session tonight. So the next one will be good evening, Kebola. As we know, humans fear the unknown and uncertainty. How shall we embrace this turbulence and degeneration of world, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic?
From the Buddhist perspective, the pandemic is not kind of something new. Even though like we see that this is something new, because I think even in history also this has a pandemic has happened, in the past 100 years. What is important is the in the Buddhist teachings, we normally talk about the four seals that we need to understand what is the reality of things. So out of the four seals, the first seal is what we call all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, subject to change. So the reality is that things gonna change. It won't stay static, even though we like things to remain like that for like a year, for a century, for eons. We would like that because that's our what you call way of thinking, and which is actually a misconception. And because in reality things won't stay static, every moment it changes. And when we talk about change, their change can be of two levels. One is gross level, and the other one is a subtle level. The gross level is something that we can perceive, like for example, suddenly a thunder comes and then a house is kind of blown away. Suddenly a building collapses. That is kind of gross impermanence, that we can see destruction, that we see change kind of like quite kind of obviously. But the momentary change is something that we always fail to see. And that is like moment by moment it changes, it arises, it changes, and it's called momentary nature of conditioned things. So this is the nature of things, and our perception is like that we are confused because like we think that because of the continuity of certain things, we take them as one, same. So in English we say we can't swim in the same river twice. We can't swim in the same
Hmm.
river twice because it's momentary. So in the same way, we don't see the same person twice. But we think that, okay, this is the same person as yesterday, right? So the reality, what is the reality and what is our perception? There is a gap there. And because there is a gap, there is what we call that leads to some kind of imbalance, and that leads to fear. That is, uncertainty is there, uncertainty. And because things are always changing, that is something out of our control, which we can't control, because this is the nature of things. And we try to build something on that. It is just like a very good example given in the teachings, that trying to build a sand castle. So we are building sand castle, a castle on sand. And when the sand is like wet, then it stays, right? But when when there's heat and the moisture is gone, then it collapses, right? So it's more like we are trying to secure something, whatever it is, whether it is position, power, health, whatever it is. We want to continue. We want to extend it and keep it normal as possible. And that is what we call trying to secure where there's insecurity. And this is a task, like we are just trying to do something impossible. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of our health. We shouldn't take care of our whatever responsibilities. We have to take responsibility, but we should know that there are things which are out of our control. And when you know that, accept that, then there's less fear.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Khenpo. It was like very enlightening. So we have got a very engaging audience today, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So I would apologize for not addressing all your questions, but keep it very safe for the next session. We are going to have one more session with Khenpo on 25th. So we will address all the questions on that day. So once again, sorry for that. And let me thank Khenpo for this wonderful meditation session. Thank you very much. So because we are running out of time, let us dedicate this session. So we will have two dedication prayers. First, we will recite the four great vows in English, and then may I please request Khenpo to have a Tibetan dedication prayer. Okay, so let's recite our dedication prayer first. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you. Khenpo.
Chanjo semjo rinpoche, maje panam ki joji, keva nyamba mebaya, kone kondo pewara sho. Chanjo semjo rinpoche, maje panam ki joji, keva nyamba mebaya, kone kondo pewara sho. Chanjo semjo rinpoche, maje panam ki joji, keva nyamba mebaya, kone kondo pewara sho.
Oh, is it my screen or Khenpola's screen? Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
somebody's. Okay. So
Thank you so much again for Khenpo.
Thank you. See you in the next session.
Yep. Oh yeah, there is some audience asking when is the next section. Next section with Khenpo will be on 25th of July. So please mark your calendar. Okay,
yeah.
I think that's all for tonight. Thank you,
Yeah.
Khenpo. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you everyone.